Hey guys, tonight we step far, far back in time, before pyramids, before written words, before anybody even thought about inventing socks. You're waking up in a place that doesn't look like the world you know. The sun rises over a vast African sky, spilling gold across a broken land where cliffs meet open plains. This is the East African Rift Valley, about 4.7 million years ago, where some of our earliest ancestors stretch their limbs and test out walking upright. The air is heavy with the scent of wet earth and grass, and you feel the warmth of the day sliding across your skin. You probably won't survive this, honestly, but that's half the fun of imagining it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing the little constellation of sleepy humans around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The ground crunches under your bare, calloused feet. You step through tall grasses, pushing aside the stalks as cicadas buzz all around. You're not alone here. Small bands of hominins wander with you, their dark silhouettes against the light. They're Australopithecus anamensis, though no one's calling them that yet. Names are a luxury millions of years in the future. To you, they're just your neighbors, part of the small crowd trying to make it through each day without being eaten by a leopard. Standing upright feels strange, but it gives you an advantage. Your eyes clear the grass line, letting you scan for predators, spot fruiting trees, and notice which waterhole isn't currently monopolized by angry hippos. Anthropologists still argue whether standing upright began mostly for seeing over grass, freeing hands for carrying food, or simply because crouching all day was terrible for back pain. Either way, you're doing it now, shifting awkwardly but proudly on two legs. The Rift Valley itself is alive. Volcanic hills smolder in the distance, and ash occasionally dusts the plains. It's dramatic, sure, but also kind of dangerous. Think of it as living next door to a very moody landlord. Earthquakes shake the land, rivers cut deep channels, and lakes form and vanish like fleeting dreams. Yet these shifting landscapes are what made this place so special for early humans. Different environments jammed close together, pushing you to adapt. You pause by a shallow stream, cupping your hands to sip. Water tastes earthy, faintly metallic, but refreshing in the morning heat. In the mud you see the tracks of antelope, the paw prints of big cats, and a few oddly familiar impressions. Other bare feet not yours. Mainstream paleoanthropology confirms that footprints just like these, pressed into volcanic ash and hardened into stone, still exist today in Litoli, Tanzania. They're about 3.6 million years old, proof that someone like you once walked here, heel to toe, side by side. Life here isn't glamorous. You forage for berries and tubers, crack nuts between stones, and eye the carcass of a zebra from a cautious distance, hoping to grab a scrap after the hyenas finish their loud dinner party. You still rely heavily on plants, though a bit of marrow sucked from bone counts as a prize. One quirky tidbit. Scientists have found microscopic scratches on fossilized teeth, showing that some of your distant cousins experimented with eating grass seeds long before agriculture. Picture you chewing on wild wheat stalks like an extra in a cowboy movie, except the movie is 4 million years long and nobody has popcorn yet. The nights are louder than the days. As you huddle with your group, the sounds of lions echo across the plains, and hyenas laugh in the distance. You curl up against others, not for romance but for safety, because even a half-asleep Australopithecus knows that warmth and numbers beat shivering alone under the stars. You glance upward anyway. The Milky Way stretches overhead, crisp and immense, utterly unpolluted by city lights. Maybe, without words, you still wonder if those shining dots mean something. Historians still argue whether symbolic thought began this early, or whether we're just projecting our own stargazing habits backward. Every day is improvisation. The world isn't giving you a script. You're figuring it out one awkward step at a time. You notice how roots smell before you dig them, how birds scatter before a predator arrives, and how the crackle of dry grass means you'd better climb a tree very fast. And yes, tree climbing is still part of your skill set. Upright walking doesn't erase your ape-like arms. You scramble up trunks with ease, clutching branches while leopards sulk below. There's humor in the clumsiness too. Imagine the first time you stood up too quickly, tipped forward, and face planted into the dirt. Congratulations, you've just invented slapstick comedy millions of years before Charlie Chaplin. Or the way someone in your group insists on hoarding underripe fruit only to realize it tastes like chewing soap. Prehistoric times, where every snack is a gamble. But here's the remarkable thing. Despite danger, discomfort, and your complete lack of bug spray, you are part of a story that lasts. These shaky first steps through the Rift Valley aren't just your footsteps. They're the starting lines of human history. One day, far in the future, archaeologists will carefully lift fragments of your bones and marvel that here, in this volcanic basin, something extraordinary began. The sun slides lower, turning the cliffs crimson. You gather close to others, preparing for another uncertain night. Tomorrow you'll wander again, scanning for figs, watching the skies, and leaving behind the faint traces of your passage in the dust. The Rift Valley holds you, challenges you, and quietly shapes the creature you are becoming. The ground still feels uneven under your bare feet. Each step is a wobble, a test of balance, a tiny experiment in how much weight your ankles can actually handle. You're no longer scurrying on all fours like a chimp, but you're not strutting confidently like a runway model either. You trudge, an awkward rolling shuffle on two legs across the grasses. This is the grand moment of humanity's most underrated invention, walking. Doesn't sound glamorous, does it? But trust me, without it, you'd still be knuckle walking through the mud and getting your bananas stolen by baboons. Your knees are bent, your spine isn't perfectly straight, and your stride feels almost comedic. Yet every step opens up new possibilities. You can carry fruit in your hands. You can hold a stick for balance or defense. You can scoop up a baby instead of leaving it behind when a leopard prowls. The cost, though, is frequent tripping. You probably stub your toes on rocks about 10 times a day. Congratulations, you've also invented the prehistoric version of Lego bricks. Mainstream anthropology tells us that upright walking, bipedalism, evolved long before humans had big brains. That's right, you learned to stand tall before you learned to think tall. Fossil evidence shows changes in the pelvis and leg bones of Australopithecus anamensis and afarensis, both wandering this Rift Valley neighborhood around 4 million years ago. Their hip joints angled differently from chimpanzees, stabilizing the torso for walking. Still, historians argue whether the main pressure came from climate change shrinking forests into savannas, or from the need to carry food and infants long distances. You look around at the grasslands. Tall stalks sway in the wind, hiding antelope, hiding predators, hiding everything. Standing upright lets you peek above the grass line, just enough to spot a tail flicking or a horn gleaming in the distance. Imagine being the first creature to get that higher vantage point. Suddenly the world stretches further, and you see more than just the dirt under your nose. But balance is a fragile gift. Try running, and your arms flail like windmills. You lean too far forward, your head outpaces your feet, and before you know it, you're inventing the pratfall again. Your companions laugh in short grunts, probably not out of malice, but because slapstick is universal. Even in prehistory, nothing is funnier than someone tripping over absolutely nothing. Still, practice makes progress. You test out different gaits, short steps, long strides, even a half run. Sweat starts to bead on your brow. That's a secret weapon you don't even realize you're carrying. Unlike most animals, you can cool yourself by sweating, not just panting. It means that one day, long into the future, your descendants will chase antelope for hours until the animals overheat. Right now, though, it just means you smell. Let's say noticeable. Soap is 1,000,000 years away. Sorry. As evening nears, you gather with your little group. You squat, still leaning forward sometimes like your ape ancestors, but you're slowly shifting towards sitting. Your muscles ache in strange new ways. Calves tightening, arches in your feet complaining, hips adjusting to angles they've never known before. One quirky tidbit. Fossilized footprints at Litoli show not just that your kind walked upright, but that they walked in pairs, side by side. Some scientists even think a small hand might have reached out to steady another. Picture that. The very first hold my hand, I'll catch you if you fall moment in human history. Yet even with this progress, danger is everywhere. Leopards crouch in the grasses, crocodiles slide silently in rivers, and hyenas cackle in the dark. The good news is that walking upright frees your hands to throw rocks. The bad news is your aim is, let's say, unconvincing. You hurl a stone at a rustling bush and hit your own foot. Your companions grunt disapproval. Well done, you've invented both ranged weapons and social embarrassment. The Rift Valley rewards persistence, though. Each step, no matter how wobbly, builds endurance. You can cover more ground than your four-legged cousins. You can reach new waterholes, new berry patches, new shady trees. One day, this ability will let your descendants walk out of Africa entirely, spreading across the world. But for now, you just focus on not face-planting into the dust. As the stars come out, you huddle with your group, stretching your tired legs. The soreness feels oddly good, the way a long hike does today. Somewhere inside, your body is making tiny adjustments, reshaping bones and muscles for the long road ahead. Upright walking is still new, still clumsy, but it's here to stay. Without realizing it, you've stepped into a future where walking defines what it means to be human. Tomorrow, you'll rise again, shake out stiff knees, and test your stride on another day of survival. And maybe, just maybe, you won't trip this time. But no promises. Your hands feel strange without branches to grip. They dangle at your sides, fingers twitching like they're searching for something to hold. And then, almost instinctively, you reach down and pick up a stone. Smooth, heavy, cool in your palm. You tap it against another rock, hear the sharp crack, and suddenly there's an edge where none existed before. Congratulations, you've just entered the Stone Tool Club, where the membership fee is patience and the reward is sliced fingers. The air smells faintly of dust and crushed quartz as you clack rocks together. Chips fly. Most scatter uselessly, but one fragment glints. A shard sharp enough to scrape meat from bone or cut into a root. This isn't about elegance. It's survival. The tools you're making now belong to what anthropologists call the Oldowan industry, thought to be some of the first deliberately made stone tools around 2.6 million years ago. Sure, you're a bit early in this imagined walkthrough, but the seeds of curiosity and clumsy tinkering are already there. Historians still argue whether the very first stone tools were made by humans or by other clever creatures like Australopithecus afarensis. Whoever did it, though, the concept spread faster than gossip around a watering hole. You squat, experimenting. Your thumb throbs after one mishit, and you curse softly, well, grunt angrily anyway. A bleeding finger is the tax of innovation. You press the shard against a stick, peeling bark, imagining how it could be sharpened into something useful. Feels empowering, like you've hacked the cheat code of the savannah. Now you can split nuts, scrape hides, and open bones for marrow. Speaking of marrow, you wander toward the aftermath of a lion's dinner. A zebra carcass lies sprawled, ribs jutting, meat mostly stripped. The lions are gone, but the smell of rot warns you to work quickly. You kneel and use your jagged tool to chip into a leg bone. The crunch echoes. Inside is marrow, fatty and rich, the prehistoric equivalent of a protein shake. You scoop it out with your finger, savoring the greasy taste. Around you, vultures circle overhead, unimpressed by your culinary achievement. There's humor here too. Imagine how ridiculous you look, hunched over a bone, grinning at a mouthful of sticky fat. You wipe your chin on your arm, leaving a greasy smear, the first unofficial napkin in history. Somewhere in the distance, another group spots you and points. Jealous? Maybe. Or maybe they're laughing because you still don't know that gnawing on antelope shin bones makes your teeth look like you've been chewing on rocks. Yet this humble shard of stone is the start of everything. You don't know it, but tools mean culture. Tools can be passed on, imitated, improved. One quirky tidbit. Archaeologists have found caches of tools that seem to have been stored for later use, suggesting that even these early humans planned ahead. Planning. That's a pretty big leap for someone who still forgets where they buried last week's roots. The tool also changes how you see the world. Suddenly, every rock is potential. You scan riverbeds for flakes that might split nicely. You test weight, texture, sharpness. This scavenger's eye transforms landscapes into workshops. It's the dawn of what will eventually become engineering, art, and, millennia later, the guy in your office who insists on showing everyone his new gadget. But here's the thing. Not everyone agrees on technique. Some in your group smash rocks messily, others more carefully, and debates break out through grunts, gestures, and the occasional dramatic eye roll. Historians still argue whether toolmaking spread from one genius group to others, or whether different groups figured it out independently. Either way, you're in the middle of one of humanity's greatest brainstorm sessions, except instead of whiteboards and markers, you've got rocks and blisters. Evening creeps across the savannah, painting everything gold. You sit with your group, passing around shards and scraps of marrow. The tools clink against one another as they're dropped in the dust, the sound oddly comforting. You feel a spark of something new, pride, not just in surviving the day, but in shaping the world around you, however crudely. And tomorrow you'll pick up the stones again, crack them with purpose, and maybe, just maybe, slice your food before eating it. Baby steps, literally and figuratively. Tools won't make life easy yet, but they mark a turning point. You're not just a creature in the wild anymore. You're a creature shaping the wild into something a little more manageable. One bruised thumb at a time. The night sky is wide and deep when you first notice it. Flickers of orange at the edge of the plain. Not the soft glow of sunrise, not the pulsing of fireflies, but a new light altogether. Fire. You edge closer, nostrils twitching at the sharp tang of smoke drifting through the air. A tree, split by lightning, smolders in the distance. Crackling like a giant is cooking something you're not invited to share. You hesitate. Every instinct screams danger. Fire eats trees, devours grass, and chokes the air with ash. But there's something magnetic about it too. You creep closer, feeling warmth on your face. The crackle is steady, rhythmic, almost like breathing. For the first time, you realize the world has more than just light and dark. There's a glow that belongs to fire alone. Mainstream anthropology points out that early controlled fire use may have started around 1 million years ago with Homo erectus, but curiosity about flames goes back much further. Even Australopithecus probably sat, as you are now, staring with wide eyes at lightning-struck blazes. Historians still argue whether fire was first mastered for cooking, protection, or simply comfort. For you in this moment, it's just wonder, a dangerous, mesmerizing mystery. You stretch your hands toward the heat, then snatch them back too quickly. Lesson learned. Fire is not a toy. Still, the warmth feels good on your skin, cutting through the chill of night. Imagine huddling here with others, the light dancing across faces, shadows leaping like spirits in the grass. Without knowing it, you're inventing the campfire gathering, a tradition that will stretch all the way to backyard barbecues and awkward summer sing-alongs. One of your companions tosses a dry branch onto the blaze. It flares, sparks snapping upward into the dark. The group startles, then laughs, short, gruff chuckles. You grin too, because suddenly the night doesn't feel so terrifying. Lions slink away from the light, hyenas circle wider, and the insects that once buzzed around your ears keep their distance. Fire is both shield and spotlight, keeping predators back while illuminating your little community. The smell of roasted grass drifts into your nose, and hunger stirs. You glance at a scrap of meat scavenged earlier, then back at the fire. Curiosity prickles. What if? You drop it onto the edge of the embers, Watch it hiss and curl. The scent changes, smoky, savory, oddly appealing. You poke it with a stick, blow away ash, and take a cautious bite. It's chewy, hotter than expected, and singes your tongue, but it's also softer than raw meat, easier to swallow. Somewhere inside, your stomach and teeth breathe a sigh of relief. You don't know it yet, but cooked food will change everything. Easier digestion, more energy, smaller guts, bigger brains. All from a happy accident of oops, I dropped it in the fire. There's comedy in this too. Imagine one of your companions trying the same experiment and pulling the meat out half-burnt, half-raw. They wrinkle their nose, wave it dramatically, and throw it into the grass. Congratulations, you've just invented the picky eater. Another fumbles with a stick and sends the whole chunk flying into the flames. Cue prehistoric slapstick, laughter echoing into the night. As the fire burns lower, the group draws tighter around it. The warmth soothes sore muscles from walking all day, and the flames hypnotize. Eyes droop. This is more than survival now. It's ritual, it's comfort, it's community. One quirky tidbit. Archaeologists have found ancient hearths with circles of stones, suggesting that early humans tended fire carefully, even building little fireplaces millions of years before IKEA sold flat-pack versions. You lie back, head on your arm, watching sparks drift upward like tiny stars breaking free from the earth. Fire feels alive, unpredictable, yet strangely loyal if fed and cared for. You sense that it can be tamed, that one day it will follow wherever you go. The Rift Valley breeze stirs the embers, and they glow like eyes in the dark, reminding you that power always carries risk. But for tonight, you're safe. Safer than you've ever been. Fire has carved a small circle of peace in a dangerous world, and within it you and your kind begin to dream bigger dreams. Tomorrow, you'll move on, seeking food and water, but the memory of this warmth will stay with you. You'll carry the idea of fire in your mind, ready to claim it again whenever lightning gifts you another spark. And little by little, humanity's relationship with flame will grow, from awe to dependence to mastery. But right now, you're just a tired wanderer, lying in the grass, drifting towards sleep as the last embers fade into the night. The morning heat builds fast, shimmering above the grass. You shift uncomfortably, scanning the horizon for movement. Today you're not just foraging, you're hunting. Not with arrows, not with spears, not even with nets. You've only got your legs, your lungs, and a stubborn refusal to quit. Welcome to persistence hunting, the strangest marathon you never signed up for. Start slowly. You spot an antelope grazing by the river, head twitching nervously as flies buzz around its ears. Normally, predators rely on speed and ambush. Lions leap, cheetahs sprint, crocodiles explode from the water. You're betting on endurance. You jog toward the antelope, not fast enough to catch it but steady, relentless. The antelope bolts, of course, it's faster, leaner, designed for the sprint. But here's the secret. It can't pant and run at the same time. You, on the other hand, are the sweaty weirdo of the savannah. Your shoulders roll with each stride. Your arms swing, stabilizing balance. Sweat pours down your skin, cooling you as the sun climbs higher. Every breath is ragged, but you keep going. Anthropologists point out that humans are uniquely adapted for long-distance running. Springy tendons in your legs, wide-open nostrils, and, yes, the ability to sweat buckets instead of overheating. Historians still argue whether this technique was used primarily for hunting or just for scavenging, scaring animals away from carcasses. Either way, you're in the thick of it now. The antelope sprints, then slows, then stops to pant. You appear again on the horizon, jogging like the world's most annoying shadow. It bolts again, but each time it grows weaker, less coordinated. You're not fast, but you're persistent, the tortoise in this very sweaty tortoise and hare scenario. Around you, the world feels alive. The ground trembles with herds moving. Birds cry out overhead, and insects whirl in your face like tiny kamikaze pilots. Your lungs burn, your calves scream, but you push forward. One quirky tidbit. Scientists have studied modern hunter-gatherers like the sand people of the Kalahari, who still practice persistence hunting, sometimes chasing kudu for 4 or 5 hours until the animal collapses. It's not glamorous, but it works. Halfway through, you stumble on a rock, barely catching yourself. Your companions grunt encouragement, though one clearly laughs at your clumsiness. Well done, you've just invented jogging buddies and hecklers in one package. You splash through a shallow stream, the water warm against your ankles, and press on. The chase stretches into hours. The antelope staggers now, foam flecking its mouth, each step less certain. You feel it too. Fatigue gnawing at your ribs, but stubbornness keeps you upright. And then, at last, the animal slows to a halt, sides heaving, unable to move. You close the distance, rock in hand, and with one final shaky strike, the hunt is over. You collapse too, not from injury but from sheer exhaustion. Dust sticks to your sweaty skin, your heartbeat thunders in your ears, but there's triumph in your chest. You've earned this meal the hard way, through persistence, grit, and an embarrassing amount of body odor. The group gathers, tools scraping against bone, hands tearing meat. Smoke from yesterday's fire experiment lingers in your mind, and you wish you had those flames here now. Raw meat is chewy, stringy, and full of bacteria you'd rather not think about. Still, hunger overrules disgust. You chew until your jaw aches, savoring the taste of salt and iron. As you sit back, stomach heavy, you realize what this means. Hunting changes everything. It shifts your diet, your energy, your role on the landscape. You're not just scavenging scraps anymore. You're claiming the full prize. One day, humans will chase mammoths across ice fields and wildebeest across plains, all thanks to this sweaty innovation. And yes, there's humor too. Imagine trying to explain persistence hunting to your descendants who live in a world of treadmills and sports drinks. So, you basically chased an antelope until it gave up? They'll ask. Yep. No fancy gear, no hydration packs. Just stubborn legs and gallons of sweat. CrossFit has nothing on you. As the sun sinks and the shadows grow long, you wipe your face and breathe deeply. Your muscles ache, but your belly is full, and the memory of the chase still hums in your veins. Tomorrow you may forage again or fail or stumble, but today you've proven something vital. Sometimes survival isn't about speed or strength. It's about never stopping, even when you really, really want to. The fire glows low, a warm circle in the cooling night. Around it, your group gathers, not for a hunt, not for a chase, not even for tool-making. Tonight, the focus is simpler, eating and being together. You sit cross-legged in the dust, chewing on scraps of meat, passing handfuls of berries, and making sure no one hoards the last marrow bone like a greedy raccoon. Sharing food isn't just politeness, it's survival insurance. If you give today, maybe you'll receive tomorrow when your luck runs dry. Your fingers are sticky with juice, and you wipe them absently on your thigh. Someone next to you grunts approval, tearing off a strip of meat and handing you half. You nod, grunt back, and suddenly you've communicated without words. Thanks. That's the magic of these gatherings. Language hasn't fully blossomed yet, but gestures, sounds, and expressions do the work. Mainstream anthropology notes that group cooperation around food may have been one of the earliest sparks for complex social behavior. Historians still argue whether language arose first from hunting coordination, food sharing, or, let's be honest, gossiping about who fell into the river again. The flames crackle, lighting faces with orange glow. You notice how much more relaxed everyone seems here compared to the open dark of the savannah. Fire shrinks the danger zone, pulling everyone inward. One quirky tidbit. Modern studies suggest that firelight actually lowers stress hormones in humans, almost like it was hardwired into us millions of years ago. No wonder you're feeling drowsy. Then come the noises. Not predator growls or insect hums, but vocal play. Someone across the circle mimics the bark of a dog-like animal, exaggerated and silly. Laughter erupts. Short, barky sounds of amusement. Another imitates the snarl of a leopard, eyes wide in mock fear. The group howls louder. It's not just entertainment, it's bonding. The first prehistoric stand-up comedy set, delivered entirely in animal impressions. Between jokes, there are stories, or at least proto-stories. A hunter gestures wildly, miming the chase of an antelope, puffing out his chest in pride. Others nod, some reenact, adding their own spins. The tale shifts with each telling, becoming a performance instead of a report. You can almost sense narrative being born here. Not just what happened, but how it's remembered. There's a rhythm to it all. The crack of fire, the murmur of voices, the soft crunch of teeth on roots. You feel a tug of safety, of belonging. Without realizing it, these nightly gatherings are rewriting the rules of survival. No longer just individual bodies against the wild, you're a unit, small, fragile, but stronger together. Cooperation feeds, protects, and entertains. Still, not everything is harmonious. One child tries to snatch more than their share of berries. A scuffle breaks out, sharp grunts flying as quickly as fists. The elder, older, slower, but respected, reaches out with a firm smack, ending the fight. Balance restored. You sigh, amused. Congratulations, you've just invented sibling rivalry and parental intervention. As bellies fill, the pace slows. People lean back, staring at the stars. Someone traces shapes in the air, pointing upward, hinting at patterns. You follow their hand, squinting at the scatter of lights. Do those dots mean anything? No one knows for sure. Historians still argue whether symbolic thought was emerging this early, or whether these gestures are simply curious habits. But in the quiet, you feel the pull of wonder, the same wonder humans will carry into every era. The laughter dies down, replaced by softer murmurs. Babies fuss and are soothed. Adults stretch sore limbs, eyelids droop. The fire hisses as a log collapses inward. You lean closer to its warmth, listening to the last exchanges of the day. Maybe the first words of a language are hidden in those sounds, buried in the rhythm of voices and flames. You rest your head on your arm, stomach full, body heavy, mind drifting. Tonight wasn't about the chase or the danger. Tonight was about scraps of meat passed hand to hand, about laughter shared across the firelight, about the comfort of knowing you're not alone. And in that comfort, you sense the beginnings of something bigger. Community, storytelling, culture. It's all here, glowing quietly in the circle of firelight, waiting to grow. Rain drizzles down from a heavy gray sky, pattering softly on leaves and pooling in the hollows of rocks. You pull your hide loosely around your shoulders, though it's barely enough to stop the chill. The fire sputters, nearly smothered by the wet. Without proper shelter, this night is going to be miserable. You glance around. No walls, no roof, just open plains and dripping branches. Welcome to one of humanity's oldest problems. Where do you sleep without becoming someone else's dinner? Your group huddles near a low cliff, scanning for protection. A shallow cave juts into the rock face. You duck inside, the air cool and damp, but at least it's dry. The smell hits you first, bats, droppings, and the faint musk of animals that might have used this place before you. Still, it's better than being soaked outside. Mainstream anthropology notes that caves became crucial shelters for early humans, offering protection not only from weather, but also from predators. Historians still argue whether early cave use was opportunistic, just squatting where convenient, or whether it marked a more organized sense of home base. Inside, shadows stretch long, and echoes bounce back with every grunt. It feels oddly grand, like nature built an amphitheater just for you. You spread leaves into a crude mat, lay down, and instantly realize that rocks are not mattresses. Every angle digs into your back. You groan, roll over, and repeat, still uncomfortable. Congratulations, you've invented tossing and turning. Outside the cave, storms lash the valley. Lightning flashes, thunder rumbles, and you think briefly of yesterday's fire, how it made the night safe, how it turned chaos into comfort. You try to keep a few embers alive, blowing gently, cupping them like fragile jewels. Success. A tiny glow persists. You tuck it beneath dry bark, determined to keep it until morning. One quirky tidbit. Scientists have found evidence of ancient fire carriers, bundles of material that could keep embers smoldering for days, so groups didn't have to spark fire anew each night. But caves aren't the only option. In drier seasons, you rely on lean-to shelters of branches and leaves, propped against fallen logs. They're flimsy, yes, and if a hyena sneezes too hard, the whole thing collapses, but they create a sense of enclosure. An enclosure, even temporary, gives you peace of mind. You pile branches thicker, add grasses, and crawl inside. The smell is earthy, the air warmer, and you smile. Primitive architecture at its finest. Of course, shelters have their risks. One evening, you climb into a hollow tree for refuge. Cozy, snug, even a little romantic. Until you discover the hive of bees already living there. The angry buzzing rises, and you tumble out, arms flailing, stung in places you'd rather not discuss. Well done, you've also invented the first Airbnb horror story. Shelter making becomes part of your group rhythm. You notice how others gather branches more efficiently, or how some dig shallow pits to shield against wind. You learn by copying, imitating gestures and methods. It's more than trial and error now. It's apprenticeship, teaching without words. That, too, shapes your future because shared shelter is shared knowledge. Inside the cave, night deepens. Rain slows to a drizzle, replaced by the occasional drip from the ceiling. You curl up beside your companions, body pressed close for warmth. The smell of damp earth fills your nose. Above, faint scratches and drawings appear. Marks left long before, or maybe just idle doodles from your group. Are they symbolic, decoration, or just bored scratching? Historians still argue, but the possibility of art lingers, even here. The quiet stretches. You feel safer, though the world outside is still loud and wild. For the first time in days, your body lets go of tension. Your eyes close, lulled by the drip of water and the soft breathing of those around you. Shelter doesn't erase danger, but it builds a fragile bubble against it. Tomorrow you'll wake and wander again. But tonight, with stone above and fire faintly glowing, you've found a way to claim a little corner of the world as your own. Shelter is survival, but it's also something more. The beginning of home. The wind bites sharper now, sneaking through cracks in your leafy shelter. You pull the damp hide around your shoulders and sigh. This is the moment you realize your bare skin is no match for a world that doesn't care if you shiver. The weather isn't always kind, and so, somewhere between discomfort and creativity, you discover clothing. Not the kind you'd pick up at a sale rack. More the sort you peel, scrape, and awkwardly stitch together from the remains of whatever animal didn't outrun your persistence. You drape a fur pelt across your back. It's warm, sure, but it also smells like goat in a sauna. Still, the heat feels good. Mainstream anthropologists suggest that the earliest clothing appeared over 100,000 years ago, based on indirect clues like lice DNA studies. Yes, lice get the credit for tracking fashion's timeline. Apparently, body lice only thrive once humans wear garments regularly, and scientists use their genetic history to estimate when you started bundling up. A little gross, but practical. You don't invent Louis Vuitton without first inventing lint rolling. You experiment with styles. A hide tied with sinew across one shoulder, toga style. A strip of fur around the waist, proto-miniskirt. Even a cloak draped dramatically over your arms, perfect for intimidating wolves or auditioning for prehistoric theater. Your group tries variations too, and suddenly there's the faintest whiff of individuality. Clothing, even crude, becomes more than survival, it's expression. Historians still argue whether early humans cared about fashion choices, or whether the idea of style is something we've projected backwards. Personally, you think that one guy in the corner, proudly wearing porcupine quills, definitely thinks he's ahead of the trend. The process isn't glamorous. You use stone scrapers to strip hides, drying them over smoke to soften. The sound of scraping fills your ears, rhythmic and dull, and the smell of singed fur clings to everything. You chew the hide edges to make them pliable, spitting out hairs like some kind of organic tailor. Quirky tidbit. Some evidence suggests brains of animals were used to tan leather, the fats and enzymes working better than water or spit. Which means someone had the oddest realization. Maybe if I rub this elk brain into the skin, it'll make my coat cozier. And it works. Soon, you're patting your feet with scraps, tying them with plant fiber. No longer does every step over gravel slice your soles. You walk with less wincing, more confidence. Even in icy winds, your fur-wrapped body stays warmer. Of course, the downside is that damp hides weigh you down, smell atrocious, and occasionally freeze stiff, turning your cloak into something resembling a prehistoric sandwich board. At night, your group compares garments, laughing at the awkward cuts and failed stitches. Someone's sleeve rips off entirely. Another's pants don't stay tied and slump embarrassingly mid-walk. It's clumsy, but it's progress. The collective effort keeps everyone warmer. You start passing techniques between one another, how to pierce holes with bone awls, how to lace sinew tighter. Suddenly, you aren't just surviving the cold, you're collaborating through it. The sense of community deepens. Wrapping hides around children, draping fur on elders, it becomes an act of care. You notice how much calmer the nights feel when the group is bundled together, not huddled raw against the elements. Warmth equals safety, and safety equals rest. You can't measure it, but you feel it. You also learn that clothing doubles as camouflage. A cloak of mottled fur blends into dry grasslands. A dark hide lets you crouch unnoticed in shadow. Prehistoric fashion show? Not quite, but there's a strategy in every stitch. As you lie back, wrapped tightly, you feel the wind press against you without sinking in. It's the first time you truly understand that you can shape your world to meet your needs. Not perfectly, not elegantly, but enough. Enough to survive, and maybe even enough to laugh at yourself when your fur cloak smells suspiciously like wet dog after rain. Morning sunlight flickers across the plain, and you blink awake to the low murmur of stomachs growling, your own included. The first problem of the day, breakfast. Except you don't exactly have a pantry, and there's no cereal box waiting for you. Instead, survival begins with foraging. You wander barefoot into the scrubby grass, eyes sharp for berries, roots, and nuts. Your stomach reminds you of its impatience with every step. Your fingers trace along branches until you find dark, plump berries. You pop one into your mouth that tastes sweet, tart, and thankfully not fatal. The knowledge of which plants to trust is ancient, passed silently through observation and mimicry. You copy the elders, plucking what they pluck. Mainstream anthropology agrees that early human diets were staggeringly diverse, with over 300 edible plant species consumed across regions. Compared to your modern three-meal routine, this diet is basically a revolving buffet. Still, every bite is a gamble. You hesitate over a new tuber dug from the soil. Is it food or stomachache waiting to happen? Historians still argue whether trial and error killed off more experimenters than it enlightened, but your group leans toward cautious taste testing. One person chews a tiny piece, waits an hour, and if they don't keel over, the rest dig in. Science by sacrifice. Occasionally, your foraging pays off in unexpected ways. You split open a nut and discover it's stuffed with rich oils. Rubbed on your skin, it makes a shiny, protective layer, primitive lotion. Quirky tidbit. Some evidence suggests early humans used fat and plant oils for both food and body care. An ancient two-for-one deal. You imagine yourself inventing the very first skincare line, Cave Glow, now with 100% natural mammoth fat. As the day warms, insects buzz lazily. You sweat, irritated, but also notice something odd. Those termites swarming on dead would look crunchy. Curiosity beats squeamishness, and you sample one. Crunch, tangy, oddly nutty. Protein without the chase. The others watch, then follow, and suddenly you've discovered bug snacking. It may not sound glamorous, but anthropologists know insects made up crucial calories for many prehistoric diets. Who needs steak when you've got termite tapas? Of course, not every search ends in triumph. Once you bite into a bright red berry, only to discover its taste is sharp, bitter, almost soap-like. You spit it out, gagging dramatically. Everyone laughs at your misery. Lesson learned. Not every bright color is your friend. Foraging becomes a rhythm, a constant scavenger hunt guided by seasons. In wet months, fruits swell, dripping with juice. In dry months, roots and seeds dominate. You notice patterns, birds clustering where berries ripen, the smell of certain flowers hinting at honey nearby. Your mind is storing a mental map, a food calendar written in blossoms and migrations. Evenings are slower. You sit in a circle, chewing leaves and seeds, listening to the sounds of night. The wind rustles, someone sneezes loudly, and you joke quietly that their sneeze might scare away lions. Your humor is dry, but it keeps spirits high. And maybe, just maybe, it's humor that makes even the plainest root taste a little better. One night, as firelight flickers, you experiment further. Tossing a tuber into the embers, you watch it roast until the skin blackens. You peel it cautiously, bite in, and, oh, suddenly, it's sweeter, softer, almost comforting. Roasting transforms survival food into something resembling cuisine. Your companions hum in approval, and you know this trick will be repeated. From now on, raw isn't enough. By the time you curl up to sleep, belly full of roots, berries, and that surprisingly tasty roasted thing, you realize survival isn't just about finding food. It's about shaping it, testing it, sharing it. And in those small acts, you're inventing the rituals of daily life, one berry stain at a time. Night falls heavy and absolute, the kind of darkness you only know before electricity. Thick enough that even your hand vanishes in front of your face. Your ears strain for every rustle, every snap of grass, because you know you're not alone out here. The lions, the hyenas, the saber-toothed cats, they all see better in the dark than you ever will. That's when you turn to your greatest nighttime ally, fire. The flames crackle and spit, glowing like a captured piece of the sun. You huddle close, eyes half shut, lulled by the flicker. Fire is warmth, but it's also safety, at least enough to keep prowling shapes at the treeline. Mainstream archaeology suggests humans controlled fire reliably around 1 million years ago, though campfire use may stretch further back. Sitting here now, staring at glowing embers, you don't care about dates, you just care that you're not lying food tonight. Of course, mastering fire isn't foolproof. Sparks sting your hands, smoke chokes your throat, and sometimes the wood just won't catch. Historians still argue whether early humans sparked flames themselves or scavenged them from lightning strikes and carried them carefully. You can picture yourself sprinting home with a burning branch like it's a relay race, desperately trying not to drop your prize. The glow changes everything. Suddenly, the night isn't just terrifying. It's a theater. Shadows dance across rock walls, stretching and shrinking as someone waves their arms dramatically. You laugh, realizing this is probably the first shadow puppet performance in history. Quirky tidbit. Evidence of charred bones near ancient hearths suggests fire wasn't just for safety, but for cooking, too. Unlocking new flavors and, more importantly, new calories. Fire turns chewy roots into sweet snacks, tough meat into tender meals. It's not just survival, it's an upgrade. Around the flames, the group grows closer. You sit shoulder to shoulder, warmth soaking into your skin, voices lowering into sleepy murmurs. Stories emerge, not polished tales, but simple recountings of the day's hunt, or exaggerated imitations of someone tripping over a log. The sparks pop in rhythm with the laughter. Fire has become your first stage, your first bedtime storyteller. You experiment with the flames. Tossing herbs into the embers creates new scents, sharp, smoky, almost medicinal. You wave your hand dramatically, pretending you've invented air freshener. Someone else grabs a stick, dips it into the flames, and twirls it through the night like a glowing baton. Dangerous? Absolutely. Entertaining? Even more so. You can imagine young ones learning to overcome their fear of fire through playful games. But fire also teaches discipline. You learn quickly not to let it die out, or the night feels infinitely longer and colder. Someone always stays awake to poke the logs, feeding the flames with dry brush. It's an early form of teamwork, the shift system of survival. If one person falters, everyone pays the price. On nights when predators howl too close, the group throws extra branches, raising the flames higher, creating a wall of light. You sit upright, every sense buzzing, but the fire holds. The eyes in the dark blink, hesitate, and retreat. You let out a slow breath. For once, you are not prey, you are the glowing heart of the landscape. Lying back, you watch sparks drift upward into the sky, like tiny stars escaping to rejoin the constellations. You feel strangely connected, fire below, stars above, yourself in between. The warmth lulls you towards sleep, but there's a deeper comfort. This fragile, flickering flame ties your group together, makes you safer, and maybe even begins to shape the very rhythm of human life. Because once you've tasted roasted food, swapped stories by firelight, and seen shadows leap across the cave wall, you'll never again be satisfied with darkness alone. Dawn creeps in with a pale haze, and as you stretch, you know the day's rhythm demands more than berries and roasted tubers. The big prize, the one everyone craves, is meat. Today you join the hunt. Your bare feet tread carefully on dew-soaked grass, every breath measured. Hunting isn't a daily certainty. It's a gamble with high risks and even higher rewards. The group moves together in near silence. You hold a sharpened stick, feeling both powerful and ridiculous, as though you've brought a toothpick to a rhinoceros fight. Yet somehow, these simple tools are the beginning of something extraordinary. Mainstream anthropology notes that persistence hunting, where early humans literally chased animals until they overheated, may have been one of the first strategies. So yes, your ancient cardio game is terrifyingly strong. You spot movement, an antelope grazing near the brush. Everyone freezes, and your heartbeat hammers like a drum. The plan isn't elegant. It's a mix of herding, chasing, and hoping the animal stumbles before you do. The chase begins, your lungs burn, and sweat pours. Hours stretch out like years. Historians still argue whether this method was sustainable or if scavenging from predator kills was more common. Either way, by the end, you're running purely on stubbornness and maybe spite. Sometimes the hunt ends in triumph. A spear lands true, the group cheers softly, and suddenly you're looking at enough food to feed everyone for days. You kneel, both proud and humbled. You've taken life to sustain your own. It's a heavy truth, softened only by the hunger gnawing in your belly. Quirky tidbit. Marrow, the soft fat inside bones, was prized almost more than the meat itself. It's the prehistoric equivalent of dessert. You smash a bone, slurp loudly, and grin like you've won a prize at a carnival. Other times, the hunt ends in humiliation. You throw your spear, miss by a spectacular margin, and watch the antelope vanish with what you swear is a mocking flick of its tail. Everyone laughs, because if you can't find humor in failure, you'll just go hungry in silence. Jokes ease the sting. Well, at least the antelope is safe tonight, probably writing a thank you letter to you. But hunting isn't only about food. It's about learning the land, reading footprints pressed into the soil, sensing the wind. You crouch, tracing a faint trail in the dust, and suddenly you feel like Sherlock Holmes of the savannah. Each track is a story. How fast the animal ran, whether it limped when it passed. These observations will shape generations of knowledge, whispered from one hunter to another. The risks are undeniable. Sometimes you stumble across a predator feeding, and suddenly the roles reverse. Your stick feels laughably inadequate when a lion raises its head, mane bristling. In that instant, survival means retreat, dignity abandoned. You sprint back to the group, breathless, inventing excuses. I was just scouting the perimeter. Sure you were. Yet despite the bruises, the hunger, the narrow escapes, hunting forges bonds. You run together, fail together, and share the spoils together. Around the fire that evening, chewing roasted strips of meat, everyone relaxes. Smoke clings to your hair, grease slicks your fingers, and laughter fills the night. The hunt wasn't just about filling your stomach. It was about shaping your place in the group. As you drift toward sleep, belly heavy and limbs aching, you realize something vital. You're not just surviving anymore. With fire, foraging, and now hunting, you're experimenting with culture, rhythm, and even ritual. Each day writes a new chapter in the unwritten book of humanity, and tonight, it smells faintly of roasted antelope. The day's hunt may fill your stomach, but survival demands more than meat and marrow. You need things: tools to cut, shelters to shield, maybe even something sharp enough to make predators hesitate. That's where the art of tool-making comes in, and you're about to spend hours hunched over a rock, smacking it with another rock, hoping this particular rock will finally decide to become useful. You squat by the riverbed, palms gritty with dust, staring at a lump of flint. To a modern eye, it looks like garden gravel, but to you, it's a treasure chest of possibilities. One sharp blow, if you angle it just right, sends a shard flaking off, its edge so keen it can slice through hide. Mainstream archaeology tells us that Oldowan stone tools date back more than 2.5 million years, which means your ancestors were crafting cutting edges long before Netflix. And honestly, this is probably just as addictive. You chip, 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 each strike echoing across the plain. When the flake finally splits just right, you hold it up, grin wide, and feel like you've just 3D printed a miracle. Of course, about 10 minutes later, you nick your own thumb and mutter words that sound suspiciously like humanity's first swear. Still, the payoff is enormous. With stone blades, hides become clothes, bones become dinner, and roots become manageable. Sometimes the workshop turns into a social event. You sit in a circle, rocks clacking in rhythm, almost like a drum circle for survivalists. Someone, half serious, claims their tool is the sharpest. Someone else insists theirs could cut the hair off a mammoth. You laugh, though quietly, because yes, mammoth haircuts might just be the strangest beauty trend in prehistory. Quirky tidbit: archaeologists have found caches of stone flakes far larger than necessary, suggesting early humans stockpiled them, almost like prehistoric junk drawers. Yet, tool-making isn't just functional, it's symbolic. Historians still argue whether certain carefully crafted hand axes were purely practical or also a kind of social display, like an early flex. You imagine someone showing off a perfectly symmetrical axe at a campfire and hearing murmurs of admiration. Who needs jewelry when you've got razor-edged craftsmanship? You also experiment with materials. Bones become awls for piercing hides, wood becomes digging sticks, shells scrape fibers into cord. You tie sinew to stone, inventing handles. Suddenly, you're not just banging rocks, you're engineering. You can almost hear a faint drum roll as the first hafted spear comes together, changing the balance of power between you and the wild. And there's a rhythm to the whole process. Strike, flake, shape, repeat. Dust rises, sparks sometimes leap, and your mind drifts as hands keep working. Toolmaking is meditative, like knitting with a bit more danger to your fingertips. By the time the sun lowers, you've built a small pile of sharp edges, each one a promise of an easier tomorrow. You look down at your handiwork and chuckle. No, it's not pretty. No, it's not polished. But it works, and that's enough. And in that clumsy little flake, you glimpse the beginnings of invention, innovation, and maybe even imagination. Because tonight, when you slice into roasted meat with your stone blade, you're not just eating, you're wielding the earliest proof that humans can shape the world, one stubborn rock at a time. With tools in your pouch and smoke still curling from the fire, your thoughts drift toward shelter. Food and weapons are fine, But one heavy rainstorm will remind you that sleeping under the stars is not always the dream it sounds like. You need something sturdier than a leafy blanket. You need walls, a roof, and maybe, if you're lucky, a spot that doesn't drip directly onto your forehead. The group scouts for a good place. Caves are the obvious jackpot. Cool in the heat, dry in the rain, defensible against predators. The only downside? They usually come pre-furnished with cave bears or hyenas, and eviction notices aren't exactly enforceable when you're carrying only a stick. Still, on lucky days, you find one unoccupied, and the echo of your footsteps makes it feel like you've stepped into nature's own cathedral. But caves aren't everywhere, so ingenuity steps in. You gather branches, leaves, and animal hides, stitching them together with sinew and hope. Mainstream archaeology has uncovered evidence of early shelters at sites like Terra Amida in France, where wooden huts dating back 400,000 years suggest our ancestors were far handier than we might think. You, on the other hand, are still trying to figure out why your roof keeps collapsing. Your shelter rises crooked but proud. Sticks lean together like conspirators. Hides flap gently in the wind, and smoke from your little fire curls upward through a hole you swear you designed, but really just forgot to cover. As night falls, the warmth is undeniable. You stretch out on a bed of grass and furs, and though your back complains, it's still better than the bare dirt. Quirky tidbit. Some early shelters used mammoth bones as structural supports, turning architecture into a very metal combination of survival and statement piece. Historians still argue whether these early homes were communal, shared by multiple families, or private experiments in cozy living. You imagine both. Sometimes a buzzing crowd of neighbors, sometimes a quiet hideaway where you can finally nap. The truth likely varied just as it does now. And yet, shelter isn't only physical. Around that firelit space, with walls creaking and smoke rising, something else emerges. A sense of belonging. You're not just hiding from the rain. You're building a place where laughter bounces off the walls, where stories ripple, where you can snore loudly and only half the group threatens to move outside. The night deepens. Outside, wolves howl, wind rattles the hides, rain taps gently on the roof. Inside, the air is warm and close, the fire dances, and you roll onto your side, sighing. Maybe tomorrow your hut will fall down, or maybe you'll improve it. For now, it's enough. For the first time, the world feels not just like wilderness, but like home. The night brings a sharp chill, and by dawn your breath hangs in the air like little ghosts. Seasons have always shifted, but over the long sweep of prehistory, those shifts are brutal. Ice ages creep forward, glaciers grind across continents, and then retreat, leaving behind deserts, grasslands, and rivers that carve entirely new landscapes. If you want to survive, you can't stay still. You adapt or you don't make it. Simple as that. You wrap yourself tighter in animal skins, the smell of smoke still clinging to them. Fire crackles low, but it's never quite enough. Your toes ache, your fingers stiffen, and you eye the horizon with both dread and determination. Mainstream research confirms that early humans endured multiple ice ages, traveling south when the glaciers advanced, then pushing back north as the ice withdrew. Migration wasn't an occasional adventure. It was life itself. Walking across snow-crusted plains, you marvel at the silence. The crunch of your steps feels like thunder in the emptiness. Herds of reindeer and mammoth wander in slow, deliberate lines, their bodies perfectly built for this climate, unlike yours, which requires constant improvisation. The joke here is obvious. Prehistoric Fashion Week was basically just, how many layers of dead animal can you wear without toppling over? But cold isn't the only challenge. In some places, deserts stretch endlessly, their heat shimmering off the sand. You trudge with parched lips, watching vultures circle lazily above, and you wonder whether you'd rather freeze or roast. Neither is appealing, though you admit one at least comes with less frostbite. Quirky tidbit. Evidence suggests that humans once lived along the edges of dried-up megalakes in Africa, where shifting climate turned lush regions into barren wastes, forcing constant adaptation. Historians still argue whether adaptability came more from physical evolution, like changes in body size and metabolism, or from cultural tricks like clothing, shelters, and tools. You suspect it's both. A blend of body and brain, of endurance and ingenuity. Because here you are, stumbling across ice and sand, still finding berries to chew, still chasing game, still laughing when someone falls into a snowdrift. In these extremes, fire becomes more than warmth, it becomes identity. The hearth glows at the center of camp, a beacon in the darkness, a reminder that you belong somewhere even when the landscape itself feels hostile. And as you huddle close, you realize something. Survival isn't just about enduring nature's moods. It's about learning her rhythms, reading her signs, and trusting that tomorrow will bring another chance to try again. You drift into sleep under a fur cloak, listening to the wind whip past your shelter. Tomorrow may bring ice or heat, or both. But tonight, there is fire and there is rest. And that, for now, is enough. The fire dwindles to embers, and in that fading glow you notice how much has changed. From awkward steps in the Rift Valley to huts braced against ice and heat, you've stumbled, sweated, and laughed your way into something recognizably human. Your body feels tougher, your hands more skilled, your mind sharper. Even your face has shifted, forehead higher, jaw softer, eyes that catch more of the world's detail. You are not the same creature that once flinched at a spark of lightning fire. The group around you is different, too. More cooperation, more planning, more shared memory. You talk, well, grunt and gesture mostly, but those sounds are longer, richer, closer to language. Maybe one day those syllables will knit into words, words into sentences, and sentences into stories told across generations. Mainstream history suggests that by around 50,000 years ago, fully modern language had blossomed, though the exact timing remains an open debate. Sitting here, listening to the chatter, you can feel the edges of it forming already. You walk farther now, across valleys and rivers, carrying shells, ochre, and tools to trade with distant groups. Each exchange is more than a barter of goods. It's the weaving of a social fabric that stretches across continents. Quirky tidbit. Archaeologists have found beads and pigments traded hundreds of miles from their origin. Proof that your ancestors were networking long before anyone invented the word networking. Historians still argue whether it was fire, tools, language, or cooperation that gave humans the decisive edge. But from where you sit, it's obvious. It wasn't one thing. It was the messy, stubborn combination of them all. The daily grind of trial and error, the courage to keep walking into the unknown, the quiet evenings spent around the fire inventing meaning. And so, as you gaze up at the stars, you notice a peculiar truth. Those stars have watched everything. The first upright steps, the first sparks of fire, the first whispers of belief. They'll watch farming, cities, kings, trains, Wi-Fi, all of it. But for tonight, they watch you, tired and content, curled beside your family in a hut that somehow keeps the rain out. You exhale slowly, your breath rising like a small cloud into the darkness. Tomorrow will come, and you'll keep walking toward it. But for now, you close your eyes, knowing the long story of humanity has only just begun. The fire fades to its faintest glow, and the night folds gently around you. Each sound softens, the rustle of hides, the sigh of wind at the doorway, the muted breaths of those resting nearby. Even the restless animals beyond the camp seem quieter, as though the world itself is tucking in with you. You feel the ground beneath you, solid and reassuring, and the faint warmth of the hearth still lingers on your skin. The struggles of the day, long treks, cold winds, hungry bellies, are already drifting out of reach, like footprints erased by morning rain. What remains is stillness, your thoughts slow, stretching out like shadows at dusk. The story of survival, of first steps, first fires, first shelters, settles into something gentler now, less about urgency and more about continuity. You are part of a line, stretching back millions of years and forward into tomorrow, each heartbeat carrying the rhythm of those who came before. Even the stars above seem softer now, less like pinpoints and more like a blanket, faint light filtering down as if it belongs here, wrapped around your camp, wrapped around you. The night hums in its quiet way, and you feel safe enough to release the weight of awareness. So breathe slowly, let the air in, let it go. Imagine the embers winking, one by one, as your body sinks deeper into rest. There is no need to walk now, no need to gather, no need to decide. Only stillness, only warmth, only the long comfort of night. And as your eyelids lower, the story fades too, soft and steady, like footsteps vanishing into the distance. Sleep takes over, carrying you forward, as gently as history itself.